So tell me if this story sounds familiar. You get a bunch of these appointments on your calendar. Maybe they're through a funnel, somebody pre-booking them on your calendar, or you call the leads yourself. But all of a sudden, when it comes to the time for the appointment to take place, you jump on Zoom and it's crickets. Nobody's there, nobody shows, it's just you. Maybe you get 1 out of 10 people to show up onto a Zoom call with you. And you're stuck scratching your head wondering, was this even a real appointment? Is this even a real person? Do online appointments even work? That's exactly why I'm making this video, to show you the exact steps and processes that we use to take our show rate from 45% to 60% in a matter of 1 week. I'm going to be revealing the 5 reasons that people no-show appointments and all of the ways that you can overcome it. And I'm also going to reveal the #1 biggest determining factor that decides if somebody shows up to an appointment or not. So let's dive right in. All right, so whenever we talk about show rate, I always like to give this statistic because I feel like it puts things into perspective, okay? So do you know what the divorce rate in America is, all right? What's the divorce rate? Well, the divorce rate is about 50%, okay? Now, whatever your opinion on religion is, it doesn't really matter, but a good percentage of the American population believes that a marriage is a covenant between a man, a woman, and God, that they are committing to each other for life. They get all of their family in a room. They sign paperwork with the government, go down to the courthouse. It's a whole ordeal. Trust me, I'm planning a wedding right now, so I would know. And half of the time, they break that commitment, okay? So 50% of marriages end in divorce. So I always give that stat because I think a lot of people think that if 50% of people no-show them, that's like a terrible statistic. It's like, dude, you're some random stranger on the internet who booked a random online appointment with somebody, and you're expecting every single person to show up. It just doesn't make any sense, right? So what is actually a good show rate? Okay, what's a good show rate to shoot for? Well, I would say anything less than 50%, is you can scale it, but the rest of your numbers have to be good, right? So less than 50% is scalable, but the rest of your numbers have to be on point. If it's at 50%, that's a really good place to be. If you're greater than 50%, then you're in a very, very, very good spot and you're doing something right. Okay? What I've found is like the gold standard for show rate at scale when you're booking a lot of appointments and you're doing it with cold traffic, which is what leads are cold traffic, is if you can have a 60 to 65% show rate, you're doing things really well. I have seen it go higher, but usually when you start to spend more and really scale, that's when the show rate does start to dip. But particularly for insurance appointments, 60 to 65% is a really good place to be. Alrighty, so let's walk through the 5 different reasons that people actually no-show appointments, right? So I actually had a call inside of my paid community, my paid group for all of our clients. And essentially the exercise that we did together was we all kind of like wrote down different reasons that people that are actually part of the group have no-showed calls. So for example, somebody no-showed a doctor's appointment. Somebody else had no-showed a date. Lots of people had no-showed sales calls, and some of them had even no-showed their clients, right? And so we were kind of like writing down and listing everything out. And what we came upon and kind of agreed upon as a group is that there were five reasons. All the reasons that they no-showed appointments could be fit into 5 boxes. All right. So number 1 is an emergency came up. Okay, an emergency came up. Who here has heard that one? Right? Everyone has heard. Oh, there's an emergency. The next one is they're trying to avoid a negative experience. So negative experience avoidance. So an example of this is like if you've had a situation where maybe, think of like timeshares. Like that's probably the most uncomfortable sales experience that most people have had in their lifetimes. You go to a timeshare, they lock you in a room, they hold on to your driver's license, and somebody's pitching you really, really hard. So if they view calls like that, or they've had a negative experience with an insurance representative, they're not going to show up to the appointment. So negative experience avoidance. Another one is they view it's a waste of time or not relevant to them. Waste of time or not relevant. The fourth reason is they simply forget. And the fifth reason is they booked for a bad time. All right. So if we want to eliminate no-shows and improve the percentage of people that show up, all we need to do is address all of these things, right? We need to address all of these things, and then people will show up to the appointments, all right? So if we kind of plot this out on a graph, people work in percentages and cohorts, right? People are creatures of habit and creatures of patterns. And so essentially, if you do nothing that I'm going to show you in this video, 20% of people will still show up, okay? You'll still get 20% of people that will show up, all right? If you do everything I tell you in this video, you will still get 20% of people that will always no-show you no matter what, right? These are the people that just don't keep their commitments. They probably have low credit scores, and they probably just suck as people, right? What we're really looking for is the 60% in the middle that could go either way. They could either no-show you or they could show up. It really just depends on what you do and the trust that you build in your process. But you're always going to have about 20% of people that no-show you no matter what, and you're always going to have 20% of people that will show up to whatever appointment you do, unless it's like just something crazy. But if you're doing it for insurance, for these normal things that we sell, you're going to have 20% of people that show up, 20% of people that don't, okay? So what we want to do is swing all these people in the middle. It could go either way. They could say, screw off, I'm not showing up, canceled, no show, no call, whatever. Or they could show up. So how do we actually do that, and how do we influence it? Well, if we go back and we look at the emergency thing, realistically, probably 10% of people actually do have an emergency at the time they book the appointment, or something like genuinely comes up, right? For example, I booked a appointment for to get TSA pre-check at the Austin airport a couple weeks ago. I had an emergency where I lost my passport and couldn't find it. Turns out you need your passport to get all of that stuff done, so I ended up not going to that appointment. So that was a 10% situation. If you've ever gotten someone that texted you like, hey, my cat's tail just got cut off in a wood chipper or whatever, that's an example of an emergency. But in all reality, people, like, if you looked at the reasons people say they no-show you, you would think that emergencies account for like half of the reasons they no-show you. But in reality, it's really closer to like 10%. Okay? So 10% of people are going to have some emergency that comes up, and you can't control that, right? We can't really control if an emergency happens or not. So we'll just cross that off. There's not too much we can do there. Negative experience avoidance. All right. Well, what is this? Essentially, what we need to do is build trust, because if they trust you, they don't think that they're going to have a negative experience. If they think that they're going to jump on and you're going to hard pitch them and hard close them or whatever, or it's going to be an awkward conversation, or you're going to scam them or whatever, that's a negative experience they're going to try to avoid, right? So we'll talk about some ways that you can build trust in just a moment. I'm actually going to skip down to number 5, which is booked for a bad time, right? Booked for a bad time. Let me just add in a bad time. So if they book for a bad time, this is basically where it turns out whatever time they booked is not convenient, right? So what a lot of agents will do is they'll limit the amount of time slots that they have, which ultimately increases the number of no-shows that they're going to get. So I'll give you kind of like two different situations, right? Let's say there's one person and they have availability from 9 to 11. They take a 2-hour long lunch break, and then they also have ability from 2 to 5, right? And let's say they have 1-hour time slots. That means here are the available times: 9 to 10, 10 to 11. 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. Meaning, during any given day, I can book on 5 different time slots. Well, what if the most convenient time for me is from 6 to 7 or 6:30 to 7? If I book, I'm probably going to no-show. And what also happens is over time, as the day progresses, these time slots get more and more inconvenient. So, for example, let's say somebody books for 9 to 10. This is gone, right? Now, I can only pick from these 4 time slots. Well, let's say now somebody else books from 4 to 5. Now I can only pick from these time slots. So as you can see, as the day progresses, the available slots gets lower and lower. And so the likelihood that somebody shows and the likelihood that the time that they book is not a good time for them increases. So the way that you solve this is you simply open up your availability, right? So this means being available on weekends, being available on nights, and this is a pendulum, right? So the more available you are, the more slots, the better your show rate. The less slots, the worse your show rate. So I know some of you guys are like, oh, but I have, a family and a life. It's like, cool. I'm not telling you that you got to literally be open every single hour of the day, but acknowledge that if you have less time slots, your show rate is going to be lower. And you can complain about that, or you can just accept the reality and either do something to change it or not complain about it. But it is a pendulum. The more slots you have, the higher your show rate. The less slots you have, the lower your show rate, okay? The other thing too is instead of having hour-long time slots, there's a difference between the length of the appointment and the time slots, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say instead of what the example I just showed you guys before, let's say I set up my calendar where I do it where I have I go 9 to 12. I take 30 minutes for lunch, and then I am available from 12:30 to 6. Okay. So I'll show you a couple to kind of demonstrate the example. If I do 15-minute increments, I'm going to have way more time slots that show up as available. So for example, 9 to 10. 9:15 to 10:15. I can have 9:30 to 10:30. 9:45 to 10:45, right? And so you can see here, what normally would have just been 1 slot is now turned into 4. And yeah, sure, if somebody books for this time, all of these times no longer become available, but the likelihood that each slot is convenient for someone goes up, right? Because for somebody, they might get off of work or they might go into work or let's say they drop their kids off at 9, but then they have to do something else at 11. If I have the 9:15 slot available, they drop their kids off at 9, they get home by 9:15, and then they can do a 10 to 10:15. So it just gives you more time slots that are convenient for people and gives them more choice. So increasing the time slots, also increasing availability on the weekend will help with that as well. Okay, so that's going to help to solve the issue of people booking for a bad time, right? So let's say booking for a bad time is probably going to make up about 20%, okay? This is going to help you with about 20% of no-shows, because if you increase your availability, you increase the likelihood that it's a convenient time for somebody, right? If they're not doing anything else during that time and they already set the appointment, might as well show up. But if something comes up or it's like an iffy, questionable call, they're likely to no-show, all right? The next thing is I forgot, right? So if people are forgetting appointments, well, how do you think you solve that? You simply do better appointment reminders. So I'll show you guys the best cadence that I have found for that. You're going to do 1 immediately after booking, confirmation. Immediately after booking, okay? So the confirmation, these are all going to be automated, the reminders, okay? So there's automated and then there's also manual reminders, which I'll explain in just a second. So you have 1 immediately after booking. You have one 24 hours before. And then you have 1 hour before. And then you also have 15 minutes before. This is all you need for automated appointment reminders, okay? If you do that, that's going to fix a lot of the I forgot, okay? You're going to do that via text and email for all of those that I just showed you, okay? Now, here's the other thing that I've found. And we tracked this. And what we found is that if you have manual confirmation, okay? I'm gonna tell you guys an absolutely insane statistic. So we tracked this, and what we found is that our show rate for people that confirm appointments, all right, is 68%. So if somebody, and I'll explain what that means in a second. If they confirm, they will show 68% of the time. Now, this is also counting people that reschedule. So if they reschedule for a different time, that is subtracted from our show rate. So it's actually higher because they often show on the second time. If they don't confirm, the show rate is around 24%. Okay? The most clear correlation ever. So if you want more people to show, you simply just need them to manually confirm the appointment. So let me explain what that means. We actually hired someone internally on our sales team who will reach out whenever someone books the appointment. And here's essentially what they do. As soon as the appointment comes in, they will call them. If they don't answer, or actually, let me revise this. First, they will text them, and they will send them a text saying something like, hey, I just saw your appointment come through. This is blah, blah, blah. I'm about to give you a ring now. Just got a couple quick questions to confirm your appointment. So they text them, and then immediately after, they actually don't call them. They FaceTime them, okay? They FaceTime them. The reason we do this is because nobody FaceTimes their leads, right? And you're not really going to ignore a FaceTime, but you will ignore a phone call. I do it all the time. My phone's on D&D. But if I get a FaceTime from somebody, I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then also when you text them and you include your name, if you include the name in the text, then when you FaceTime, it'll show up like maybe Tim or whatever your name is, right? Maybe Tim. If they don't answer the FaceTime, I'm then going to send them a video message. So a video like message of my face. And then basically, if they don't reply to the video message, we'll text them again. Voice message. And then call 1 hour before. Or FaceTime, right? FaceTime has a higher pickup rate. And we do all of this from an iPhone, right? So this is not like, it's not like I'm doing this from the CRM. All the automated confirmations come from the CRM. The manual confirmations come from an iPhone. So we literally bought an iPhone, sent it to somebody on our team, and they do all of this manually. The reason why is people respond more to blue messages. People are prejudiced against those with Androids. Sorry if you have an Android, but it's the reality. Deal with it. Buy an iPhone. And, essentially, it just gets way higher answer rates, response rates. And again, if they confirm, if they manually text back, yes, I'm going to be there, or they do it on a phone call or whatever, they will show at 68%. So if you literally just got 80, 90% of your leads, you would be in a very, 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 very good spot, and your show rate would be much higher. Okay? So let me touch on these other things. We're going to talk a little bit about like waste of time and negative experience avoidance, because these are very important. Most people don't realize how to overcome these. So essentially what you want to do is think about an appointment that you've booked, right? If you think it's going to be a sales call, or you think someone's going to try to pitch you, you have all these objections in your mind beforehand, So what you essentially want to do is you want to think through what are the common questions / objections that people would have before the call. So for example, let's say it's an annuity, right? An annuity appointment. I could say lock up money, right? Everyone's scared about their money getting locked up. People are also scared of this is going to be a sales call or like high pressure call. I heard annuities are a scam. How does it work? All these different things, right? And you essentially are going to list these out, and you're going to put these into videos. You're going to film little videos. And the way that you're going to do it is like, so once they book, so they'll go calendar to a thank you page, right? And on this thank you page, you're going to have a video, right? You have a video, and this is essentially going to be you thanking them for booking the appointment. And then you're also going to kind of establish that trust and credibility. Hey, this is not going to be a high pressure thing. Just so you know, here's essentially what to expect on the call. We're going to go through, ask you a few questions about your current situation and see if this could potentially be a good fit. If it is, I'll show you what you could do next. If not, I'll just give you some free value and let you on your way. Then you're going to have common questions, and you're going to have these videos essentially like listed out here on the page, right? And these can be videos. It could also be like kind of like a little, like, it's called an accordion. So it'd be like question and then answer, and then it's kind of like in a little drop down, right? So essentially you just want to overcome these things on the page. And so when you do that and you make it urgent and you make it relevant, you're able to get more people showing, maybe 20% here for avoiding the negative experience. And then you're also going to get these people that think it's a waste of time because you're explaining why it's urgent and why it's relevant to them in those videos. All right. There we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and that is exactly how we were able to improve our show rate from 45% to 60% in a matter of one single week. And if you want to have our team help you with these things and help you implement a system and a process that gets wealthy clients booking on your calendar and showing up interested and ready to buy, simply click the link down below and apply to work with us. Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.